Hello and welcome to Radio Free Nintendo. It is June 5th, 2025, and the Switch 2 is released. I, too, am released. I am back, as is John Lindemann.
I am. And it's great to be back, James, but I am Switchless. My Switch arrives from Best Buy tomorrow.
God damn it, FedEx.
Yep.
God damn it. Also joined today by Mr. Greg Leahy, who did an excellent job hosting last week.
Sure. The Royal Mail did their job. They got it to me this afternoon, the Switch 2. So, yeah, they've not had that much time. Quite a lot of the time was just setting things to download. But,
it took a while.
Which I'm glad to say, one of the most obvious things I've done. I mean, I've recently had, kind of an upgrade to the speeds I was getting with my broadband. But the original Switch model, not really taking that much advantage of that, I would find, through Wi-Fi. It was better, but not a lot better. Switch 2 is tapping into that much, much more, even in, the sort of parts that I had it hooked up to, through the dock, in, one of the weakest kind of Wi-Fi spots, for reception in the house. And it was pulling down data far faster than the OLED Switch was. And so that did speed up the process, and I got quite a lot of stuff installed and, sampled. But yeah, it's all a bit, scattershot and just little bits and pieces, but we will have some stuff to talk about.
I got mine last night, so I went to Best Buy, and I'll talk about the story in a little bit. But mine took about 2 hours to finish downloading everything, including Mario Kart World and all the Switch games that were installed as cards on the main Switch. So that whole process. But I was playing Mario Kart World in about an hour. But you're right. The internet. I have Wi-Fi 5. 6, whichever one is the one that does all the crazy dual band shit. And it actually takes advantage of it, which is super nice. And yeah, even before I docked it, because I had to swap the two systems docks. But even before I docked it and had it on wired network, it still went pretty damn fast. So I've had it for a little bit now, so that's good. Guillaume Veillette.
Hey.
Also did a good job last week.
Oh, thank you.
Pure and Later, every week.
Pure Later and Best Buy Canada came through. I have my Switch too.
So, am I the only person who actually went on site to the pickup event?
Probably.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Well, I could tell you then, I'll speak about it a little bit. I was not the only person there. There were about 30. I got there at maybe 10 till. I'd actually planned to get there a little bit later in the hopes, because they were open for 2 hours, a little bit later in the hopes that everybody would clear out, but I neglected to think about the fact that there's not going to be any fucking traffic at 11:45 at night.
Yeah, right.
So, I basically just rolled in and, stood around for about 10 minutes while they waited to open. And they got through the 30 people in front of me in line in about 20 minutes. Like they were moving at a nice clip. The other line was for people who did not have pre-orders. If you're not familiar with Best Buys, they're big box stores, so they're huge. They're giant facilities. This line went around the opposite direction. It went from the middle of the store, so where the door is, around the side of the store, all the way down the side of the store, which is huge, and around the back of the store. They were not sending these people home. And according to the person working the front door, they had, quote, a whole lot of units left to sell. So I don't know how many of those people got them, but apparently quite a few. So we went through, I got mine. I was out of there in 30 minutes. I got it home and did the whole setup thing. But there were a shitload of people there. It was crazy. I was kind of bummed because I had to go to the good Best Buy and not the bad Best Buy. And you might ask, well, why would you want to go to the bad Best Buy? And the answer is, nobody wants to go to the bad Best Buy. That's why I wanted to go there. But I wasn't able to buy any from the bad ones. So I ended up at the good one, which meant I was there for maybe a little bit longer. But overall, like, kudos to them for managing that situation really well. Like, they had basically had 12 or 13 employees working the front of the store. Both, if you already had pre-ordered, they sent you to the right. If you were buying one for standing in line, they sent you to the left. And both sides had a full complement of all the accessories in a stack that you could just buy. Like, they handed you a menu when you were in line. And they just asked you, want any accessories? You give them the ones you want. He'd pick them up, scan them, add them to your order, or just give you your unit. And then when they ran out of units, or when they ran out of an accessory, they would call it in on the radio, and somebody would roll in with a cart with more of that accessory and just dump them. I happened to see that with the Gamepad Pros. Like, they were running out as I came through, and they brought like 12 more to that guy. But they only let in 2 people at a time for each line. So when you wrapped up your transaction and started walking back, they would unlock the door because they'd call out. The person at the register would call out, someone's coming out. You'd turn the corner, they'd unlock the door, let you in. They'd lock the door behind you, and then they'd let somebody else in once I'd cleared the doorway. It was a really tightly done process, which, again, that reconciles with the pre-order process, where we said that Best Buy's website was the only one that didn't fucking implode on itself because they clearly had a plan. Like, that there is something about having a plan, it turns out.
Yeah, it sometimes helps.
Yeah, they did a really nice job. And I got my stupid commemorative coin, which was wrapped in a plastic bag, a bubble. Oh, excuse me, let me go outside to in. Plastic bag, bubble wrap bag, plastic coin shell, like you would have for like a rare coin, and then the coin itself. So it's more packaging than coin.
So you also sell it on eBay?
If it's worth anything, I would be dumbfounded. It is currently sitting on top of the bookcase that has all my games in it. It will probably be there until the Switch 3 comes out.
Yeah.
Because I will forget about it. Because it is on top of a bookcase.
Yeah, I had a friend that went to a Best Buy near his place, and he said that there were 15 people in the pre-order line, and I think about 50 people in the non-pre-order line. So,
jeez, I would guess there were at least 140 in the non-pre-order line. It was huge.
Yeah.
And I mean, they weren't sending people away, so I don't know. Like, it seems like they must have had a lot of. I'll be really curious how many sold on day one.
Like, were they handing out tags to people? Because I've seen that before, where I've lined up for something.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah, and they knew exactly what they had for inventory. So it was like, okay, you get ticket number 49, you get 50, and then they have 57. So whoever's 58, sorry, you're out of luck. But which kind of works out well because the line tends to automatically regulate itself because somebody will come in and they'll say, "Sorry, man, this is it."
Route. Yeah, like they must know how many they had because I mean they're physically present.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, unless they let people take pre-orders after or pre-orders, post-orders. I don't know, reservations or something like that. Maybe that was what they did. But I mean, I saw I was number 30 in the line on the pre-order side. Obviously, it's a lot faster to give somebody a pre-order than it is to sell them a unit because there's no cash transaction or anything. It's just literally they scan your barcode on your order. They scan the back of your ID, rec. They walk over to the shelf that has all the pre-orders on it. They find yours. They give it. They hand it to you. Versus if they're selling you something where they have to ring you up and all that shit. But when I was coming out, so they started both lines at the same time. And when I was coming out, they were still sending people in to buy units who didn't have pre-orders. So I would say at least 20. Because, I mean, it wasn't moving that much faster. I mean, that much slower. So I would say like at least 15 to 20 had sold at that point. So they had a good number. I think they said they had about 50 pre-orders. So, I mean, at a minimum, they had 50% of that number as well. So Nintendo shipped a lot of these fucking things is the takeaway. We had people in our Discord say they walked into Target today after all the pre-order shenanigans and just bought one off a shelf.
Yeah.
Like, and this isn't a Wii U situation where you could buy one off the shelf for a week.
Yeah.
Which is what I ended up doing. This was just like Target had some left over. And so you could just buy it. Like somebody in our Discord said they saw one and they really can't afford it right now. And they were proud of themselves for having the personal strength to say no and walk away. Just sitting there. And I'm like, that's crazy to think about, that there's that many in the system. We knew there were a lot in the system. We just didn't know how many. We'll probably find out in a couple weeks how many. I'll be very curious because Nintendo unfortunately did their quarterly financial last month, and that on the quarter that closed at the end of March, right?
Yes.
So,
Yep.
then we should get numbers at the end of June, which means, because it's here in order to get it in June. So we should get numbers sometime in July, probably, to get 1 month's worth of sales. That will be very interesting to hear how many they moved. I bet it's going to be a staggering number for a console launch. Anyway, the actual system itself. I assume, and John, you can answer this too because you already bought it. I assume we all got Mario Kart World.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Did anybody else get Welcome Tour? Or am I the only sick person here?
Yeah, I did not.
Okay. Let me speak a little bit about Welcome Tour because it's probably the bigger ambiguity for our audience.
Did you also buy the 95? Did you also buy the $95 worth of accessories that you needed to complete it? Is my question.
I mean, I think it's just a handful of, but based on what I've seen so far, it's probably like 3% of the content in the game. Like, whatever. Like, yeah, you can't really do a Welcome Tour demo for the camera if you don't have the fucking camera.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes sense. But it's probably the thing that our audience is most, like, curious about whether or not they should buy it. We posted a review on NWR today, which I'm dumbfounded that Justin was able to play this thing to completion and review it in such a short window. But I grabbed it to talk about it on the show, so let me do that. Nintendo's kind of given this weird, like, what is Welcome Tour thing, and they've given us more information as it gets closer. But essentially, it is what it says on the tin. It is an introduction to the system, its capabilities, some of the underlying technology, and then a collection of activities you can do that sort of try to tell that story of what this thing is capable of, how it works. Then there's also sort of just like a virtual space you can wander around in that's in and of itself part of the charm. So the system itself is divided up into A through L parts. I could tell you how many that is, but I don't want to count letters on my fingers right now. And, essentially, like, the first part you start with is the right Joy-Con. And so you are a little, and I'm sure you've seen this graphic. You are a little guy who walks up a stairwell into the right Joy-Con display. It's like a museum. And you're like tiny on this giant right Joy-Con, and you wander around, and there are museum hosts who tell you about specific features. There are other patrons who will give you their thoughts on what's in front of them. There are some games scattered around it. So it'll be on the right Joy-Con. There was a game that demonstrated the mouse pointer. And in that one, you controlled I want to say it was a UFO, and there were meteors falling from the sky. And so you had to mouse around the screen to avoid the meteors. And so the first game was just how long can you survive? And there were 2 target goals. There was, I want to say it was 15 seconds and 30 seconds were the 2 goals. And so if you got both, you got double gold. If you cleared one of them, you unlocked the second mode of that game, which was collecting stars. So everything's still happening. There's still meteors falling and stuff. And it gets more and more chaotic as you go. But inside all the falling meteors, there's also these stars that you can mouse over and pick them up. And so the first one, it was like get 10, get 20. And I think the second one was get 40 or something like that. And each one of those challenges you clear, you get medals. Medals unlock other mini games and they unlock other activities. So most of the things on right Joy-Con required 0 medals to interact with. I think there was one that required 3. On the next area, which is the core of the system, there were more. I think there was one that required up to 9 medals. I ended up with 7 or 8 when I left right Joy-Con. So there's games like that show off a specific piece of functionality. There's one that I think did one I actually really liked was it was showing off the HD Rumble 2. It gave you a little tutorial on difference between HD Rumble and HD Rumble 2. It talked about how HD Rumble itself is different than Nintendo's traditional approaches to Rumble. And then it was the first minigame was you're given a cursor on a line. And as you mouse, or as you use the thumbstick to move back and forth over that cursor, the vibration in the HD Rumble 2 becomes stronger or weaker. And it wants you to find the point where it is absolutely the strongest and press A. And then it rates you on how close you were to that point. And so it's basically 2 tiers of how close you can be. And the ultimate tier is like 5 away, which is super close. The second version of that is in 2 dimensions. So it's not just a straight line. You can go up and down as well. So it's some point on this full grid is where it is the most rumble. That was really, really hard. I cleared it 1. Never managed to get to the second tier of clearing it. It's like, that's good enough. Whatever. Fuck it. But then there are things that aren't games. They're just more activities. Where one of them was a maraca thing, where it was like different things you can do to demonstrate how motion controls work and how HD Rumble feels in your hand. And that they slightly have the aesthetic of some of the mini games from everybody's 1-2 Switch minigame graphics. Not the photo stuff, but like the on-screen prompts and things. The actual game itself looks more like a Good Job. But essentially, it was shake the Joy-Cons and you can feel the beads in the maraca. If you press the button, you could change it from being a beads to being a round ball in the maraca. So it changed the sound it was making and how it rumbled and how it moved around. And so you had 5 objectives you had to complete there, which was like how many times you shake it, moving between the beads and the ball, like having one of the Joy-Con with beads, one of them with ball, and then shaking it n number of times total. Complete all those, you get a medal. And then the last thing that each one of the areas had, well, there's 2 more things. One was quizzes. There was because it's like a museum, there was a person at a desk who just said quiz over their head, and you talk to them and say, oh, you want to learn about thing. Whatever that thing was. And then some lessons would pop up to their right. These are short, like, slideshows that may have a little video clip in them or something that describe an element of that feature. So, for example, since we're talking about HD Rumble, that was actually where it taught you about the fact that it's an actuator going up and down rather than a spinning weight. And so there were like 5 or 6 screens that you interacted with, and each one of them gave you what is effectively 2 facts about HD Rumble. And then it would summarize them on the last slide. At the end of reading all of those, that person at the desk would then let you take a quiz. And if you got it all right, you would get it stamped in your book. Like the whole thing, everything you can do in each area shows up in a book, in like a little completion grid. And so as you complete them, they just get checked off. And the biggest chunk of those is the last thing that you could do at each one, which is the stamps. Every piece of hardware that is a section in the game is made up of that actual device, and all of the little components of that device have a stamp attached to them. So as you wander around the surface of the thing, you get the opportunity, like occasionally there'll be a little surprise that pops up, and you press A and that turns into a stamp. It stamps it in your book. And you can't move to the next area until you find all of the stamps for the one you're in. All the other activities are totally optional, but finding all the stamps is the only thing you have to do to move on. And the stamps are pretty obvious. They're like tied to the buttons on the Joy-Con, or the control stick, or the magnetic attachment, or the detach button, or the little slot that it attaches to the controller for, the side buttons, all that stuff. Like the places where you'd expect to find it. The only one I've struggled with was on the main body of the unit, because there was one at the dead center of the system on the screen. And in fact, I went to the guard to go to the next section when I was only missing one. And he says, I shouldn't be telling you this, but there's also one right in the dead center, or right in the center of the screen, which tells me that in playtesting, people got stuck on the same one I did. I gotten through 4 areas, so I did right Joy-Con, this console itself, left Joy-Con, and I did actually learn some facts. Like I learned, for whatever reason, it's never really occurred to me how optical mice work. I've learned how optical mice work thanks to Welcome Tour, Home Tour, whatever. I've learned specifically what modifications they made to normal behavior in order to make it work on your leg rather than on a table. I guess that's good. I've gotten to demo a lot of the functionality. There's been ones where it's like it's showing off the difference between frame rates, and so there's a mini game tied to, hey, here's a screen. How many FPS is it? And it's usually a pretty wide gulf. So it'll start as like, is this 5 FPS or 120 FPS? And it's 5. It's like, okay, that's pretty obvious. But like, if you want to get all the medals, you have to get all 6 right. And by the end, it's like, is this 110 or 120 or something that narrow? And you can only do that one on either. It knows if your TV supports 120. If it doesn't, it says you have to take the system out of the dock and do it on the system. There's one that demoed the fact that the new Switch screen can support up to 10 touch points. And so there's one that's basically playing Twister with your fingers. And it gives you 10 distinct colors you have to press. So figuring out what finger to use to start with to try to keep your fingers in a place where you can hit all 10 buttons at the end and keep them there, is really hard. It's actually really difficult. I've got to 8. I have not been able to get to 9, which is the second gold medal. But in terms of the product, like it's endlessly charming. And I don't mean that in like the derisive, well, it's very charming kind of way. I mean, a lot of thought went into how to make this thing, appealing, make it feel like, yeah, you're learning, but it's not boring. You're not having a bad time with it. You're actually getting the opportunity to see some of these things with context. I understand the system better than I did before. I guess in that respect, it achieved its objectives. The minigames are extremely simple because they're just trying to show off a single concept. But they do all seem to have about 4 variants, which is nice. That become increasingly complicated and require more mastery of the skill that they're trying to demonstrate. And it forces you to come back later to some of them because it'll be like, okay, to unlock version 3, you need 30 medals. And it's like, well, there's no way I have 30 medals right now. That's not going to work. When you complete left Joy-Con, which is the third one, a hole opens up in your left Joy-Con, or on the left Joy-Con on screen, not yours. And a little ladder descends like it's a manhole cover, and the guy standing there goes, all right, you're ready to go inside, but remember, don't open up your real Switch 2. You could get electrocuted. And then your little guy climbs down a ladder inside the Joy-Con, and suddenly you're on top of the Joy-Cons, like circuitry and stuff. And now they're explaining the components from the inside, which is neat. Like from a STEM standpoint, this is kind of a neat product. Like I'm learning a little bit about some of the technology behind this thing, and that's kind of interesting in a way that Nintendo really hasn't talked about hardware ever. Nintendo talks about what hardware can do, and it does do that. But it's really digging into the how it was done. In some cases, the how it was designed. We got the name of the aluminum used to make the kickstand, the specific variant of aluminum, the formulation. Because for those who don't know, metal from commercial manufacturer providers, they don't just give you raw aluminum. They give you an alloy. That these are all proprietary. It's called like super extra duraluminum. Is the specific, and I Googled it. That's real. That's really the name of the specific alloy from the vendor they sourced to build the aluminum for the kickstand. It's not just raw aluminum. It's this weird alloy that they felt like we needed to know. And that was a quiz question. I thought when they said super extra, that was just them being silly. And so the quiz was, what metal is the kickstand made out of? Aluminum. Duraluminum, super duraluminum, super extra duraluminum. And I'm like, okay, that's just a joke. That's just a joke answer at the end. That was the right answer. It was super extra duraluminum. And they're like, it's the same metal used to make spacecraft. And I'm like, cool. Why? I guess. Whatever. So in a certain sense, like, this stuff is really fun. Like, I'm actually getting to understand the mechanics of designing this system in a way Nintendo's never talked about this shit before. So that's pretty cool. And I am weirdly learning stuff. It's $9.99. I know people are like, this should just be a pack-in. This should just be, it's not. Okay? It isn't. Like, fucking suck it up and deal with it. Is it worth $10? Yeah, probably. Like, I've certainly paid more for less. I was at Disney World 3 weeks ago. I paid $20 for a beer. This feels absolutely generous by comparison. Fuck off with that shit.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite sayings. I've paid more for less.
Yeah,
So-
like whatever.
Yeah.
Isn't that just a skill issue? A you problem?
I mean,
what did I?
it's-
Did I pay more for less? Yeah,
Yes.
a
I
little
mean,
bit.
I don't know if it's a problem. Sometimes you just can't avoid it. Sometimes
paid
they just got you
$5
over a barrel, Guillaume.
Yeah, I paid $5 to park in a parking deck that, as it's a part of the city, I am technically a slight owner of. Why the fuck I gotta pay for that? My taxes already paid to have this fucking thing built.
You know, at one
This is
point,
my part.
at one point, streaming services didn't have ads, and you were
Yeah,
paying
that's right,
to
they
not,
didn't.
and you were paying to not have ads. Now they have ads, and you still pay. So,
Or you pay
Yeah.
to get rid of them. You pay more to get rid of them.
right.
At one point, it was expected when you travel, you get to have luggage.
Yeah.
Then fucking Spirit Airlines happened, and it's like, you want seats? That's extra.
Yep.
You fucking stand on this plane, hold your breath. You get 12 breaths per hour. Yeah, like it's not included in the system. You're right. It isn't. Like that complaint keeps happening, but like I don't feel like I've been cheated. Like I don't feel like I'm losing out here. Is it a compelling experience? No. The Switch 2 doesn't have a Breath of the Wild. I think this is actually its biggest weakness right now. Is Donkey Kong going to be that? Probably not. But like the Switch's launch was so fucking insane that it's maybe like changed my opinion on every console launch for the rest of my life, I guess. But this thing's neat. It's got some cool ideas. It's different than Mario Kart, like in a very distinct way, where it's acting as a nice like counter to the Mario Kart experience. And I put more time in it than I have Mario Kart, which is not something I thought I would say in the first 24 hours I owned the system. In part so I could talk about it here, but in part because it's relatively compelling. Like I'll be sitting on the couch and doing stuff, and then it's like, hey, you're playing on a Switch Pro controller. You're not going to be able to do this one on that. Go take the Joy-Con off the system and press A when you're ready. Because it's going to show me something about the Joy-Con that the Switch Pro controller can't show me. Maybe HD Rumble too, who knows? I go pick it up and I go do the thing it wants me to do, and then I can go put it back and play it however I want. Or it'll tell me like, hey, your TV has HDR support. You can do this demo here. Versus if it didn't, where it would tell me I need to pull the Switch out of the dock. It's more than just like, here's a bunch of, it's not a fact sheet. It's not a bunch of mini games. It's not just like wander around a virtual museum. It's all of those things and maybe a little bit more. Is it a great product? No, fuck no. Would I be happy if I hadn't had to pay $10 for it? I mean, maybe I would be marginally happier, but not really. It's $10. I paid more for lunch today and that lunch sucked. The reality of the situation is it's just like, it just is. It just is. I think it's a neat little toy to play with. I think I'm quite confident that people will learn stuff with this thing if they engage with it. Some of it's, most of it's pretty banal, but occasionally there's some stuff in there that's actually really cool where it's like, oh, that's how that works? That's fucking sick. Cool. That I appreciate. Like, Nintendo is doing a virtual teardown of their own system and I get to walk around inside it. That's dumb. I love it. I love that from me. And the little mini games they came up with, like, you can tell that these were probably the kinds of things that, John, you and I probably saw at E3s in the past when they were showing off new hardware.
Yeah.
Where it was just like, yeah, here's a little mini game to show you this functionality of the system. There was a good one for Wii U that ended up being the Yoshi Fruit Loop game where you had to like draw a loop around the fruit or whatever. Oh no, it was it was in Game & Wario. A bunch of these ended up in Game & Wario. Actually,
yeah, I think that was like in
Draw a Line.
That was in Nintendo Land as well, right? Like it was a similar concept
Yes.
was in that and Game & Wario. So I think you're right about the Yoshi connection as well. But like, the whole like you guess how long this is and all that. Like that was a big part of one of the bits of Game & Wario.
Yeah, like pretty much all of them ended up in Game & Wario, but what Game & Wario didn't do is it didn't give you a tour of the Wii U, which is just a Wii add-on, and it didn't let you walk around inside a fucking Wii U.
No, well, that's the thing.
didn't-
In some ways, it's kind of like this is like an unpretentious version of some of those things, because with some of those
Yeah.
things, it's like, well, we have to actually make it more like a game. So it's like, oh, well, let's make it Yoshi themed, let's make it Wario themed, or, you know, the various characters from WarioWare, whatever, and put it as a mode in a collection or whatever. Whereas with this, it's more overt. It's just like, yeah, this is about demonstrating the hardware capabilities. So, I mean, none of the when we came up last week, in the last week's episode, you know, I said one of the things I said was, well, you don't want to prejudge it when you haven't played it yet. But none of the stuff you've said surprises me. It seemed like that was the kind of thing that Nintendo would make to me. I think the problem is that what the price and the way they're actually selling it and everything is something that makes sense based on what they've put into it. But how much sense is going to make how much is that going to compel people to actually buy it and, you know, kind of, see it for themselves is less clear. I guess,
right.
We don't know until, you know, until the market tells us, basically, in terms of how many people actually go for this. But it does kind of feel a bit like I said, some of the reason, you know, that they've done what they've done in the past in terms of dressing some of those things up is because I think there's an element of like almost, you know, tricking kids into eating their vegetables about it. And in this case, it's just like, no, these are vegetables. Buy it and eat them anyway. And I'm not sure that will work as well as like if you delivered it another way, dressed it up differently, but it doesn't change, you know, what it is and what they put into it. That's the thing. I never kind of would be of any doubt that there would be that kind of like the charm and the kind of thought and that kind of that's gone into it.
It's also cheaper than those things. Like, it's $10. Game & Wario was not $10.
And they was, but it was bundling things together. Like I said, it's like your bloody, you know, your financial instruments. You're bundling things into, to like obscure the fact like you're paying for it or to get, like I said, the vegetables thing. Like it's, yeah, you know, in this case, in a sense, it's, you know, a squarer deal, right? It's like, do you want something like this? Well, you just pay for this and just, you know, see what it's like. And so again, there's something to be said for that. It's just, it may not end up actually reaching as many people and, you know, imparting that information, you know, onto them, as it could have done if it was delivered another way. But yeah, that's speculative. We'll have to wait and see how that pans out.
Yeah. I do think it's worth consideration. I think it's got some neat ideas. Is it something that I think is really cool? No, but I think there's definitely components of it where just like how Nintendo is teaching this thing. It does make me kind of wonder, like, could Nintendo make educational software? Like low rent educational software that just teach some like basic interesting concepts? And the answer is probably yeah. They'd probably be pretty good at it because like I understand a little bit more about circuitry. I'm a fucking computer scientist. You think I haven't built a goddamn circuit before? You think I haven't put together computer boards? Yeah, I've done that shit. I have my soldering experience. I've built a goddamn breadboard computer. I know what I'm doing. But even then, there's like stuff where they introduce something and I'm like, oh, I never thought about that. That's how that works, huh? Cool. They talk about, here's a good example. They talk about industrial design. They don't call it industrial design because that's not a term they're going to use. They talk about the speakers. The speakers are the exact same speakers that are in the Switch OLED. They say that outright. They're the same speakers in the Switch OLED. But what they've done differently is, in order to make sure that the audio is coming at you as clearly as possible, they've enclosed it in a sealed box that only has one gap, and it's at the front, directed at an angle out of the system. And they've modified it slightly so that even though the speakers are pointed diagonal down, it sounds like they're coming at you. And they've modified the audio digitally. They've changed the audio that's coming out of the thing, applying a filter to increase that effect. So it still sounds like it's coming directly at you, even though it's actually being shot diagonally downward. The reason they shot it diagonally downward was so that they could put the box around it, which box makes it bigger than the Switch OLED version of this. It's the same speaker, it's just they've wrapped it in a box. The box prevents distortion from the sound bouncing around in other components and isolates it from the sounds of the system, like the fan and stuff. So that makes the sound less distorted. So the sound comes out cleaner. So it sounds better even though it's the same speakers. They then had to digitally change the audio to deal with the fact that it's pointed away from you, which then begs the question, why is it pointed away from you? Well, the box is too big to just sit flush and project its sound outward. So they have the box at an angle, because at an angle, it's the bottom of the box is kind of sloped down towards the top, meaning they could fit a larger box in the system because it's not just sitting flush. Meaning they were able to they had to point the audio down. So they used both the physics of the shape of the port and the actual changing of the audio output to deal with that. They also talk about where they stuck the pads inside the box to reduce vibration, which is another thing they called out from the OLED. So like we get to understand they had this component from the OLED. They identified these weaknesses and how they used it. Here's how they resolved those. That caused this other concern. Here's how they fixed that concern. Like that for most people, that won't matter. But that's really fucking cool. Like we get insight into something as mundane as making the speaker sound better. And it's a small thing, but they're obviously really proud of it. And this is their chance to kind of brag. Like, this is the thought we put into the system you're now using. Like, you will never need to think about this. But we probably spent 100 meetings on it. We probably made 1 million prototypes. And this is the angle that worked best. And I think that's real fucking neato, personally. So, yeah, like there's a bunch of those. Like that's one of them. I'm not going to give them all away. I will give a hint at one of them. We've talked about how it's weird that the kickstand isn't the same shape as the OLED kickstand, which worked great. How it's that U and how that might make it feel more flimsy. Well, don't worry. It's super extra duraluminum. But there's a reason. There's an explicit reason they made it U-shaped. And they call out exactly what it is in this thing. And it's pretty mundane when you think about it. But the fact that they felt the need to call it out and explain it is in the context of saying, on the OLED, it was a large slab. And this one, it's U-shaped. The reason is blank. That's pretty cool. Like, I like getting that insight of the thought process of the engineering that built the thing that's going to be my console of choice for the next 5-6 years. I dig that. And I think most people probably will.
So pretty much, so would you say that it is safe to say that if you like the Iwata Asks articles, that you would appreciate this?
Yeah, there's definitely some of that in there. But
Yeah.
there's even more engineering than those had in them. Because Iwata's not an engineer. He was a software developer.
Yeah,
and he was an executive. So you get some of that, like they talk about that when they talked about Pokemon Gold and Silver, how they managed to squeeze the entire fucking original game's world in it. But now imagine that from a hardware standpoint. You sometimes got those with the hardware guys, but this is a game that's just constantly feeding you those. And some, like I said, some are more mundane than others. Like, how does the magnets work? Well, the buttons on the Joy-Con are metal. We heard that from one of their presentations, but one of the little NPCs in the game goes, "Wow, they're metal. I thought they were plastic."
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see much difference with this from some of like the Mark Cerny stuff that Sony does with PlayStation.
Send Mark Cerny your ears.
Yeah. Like that stuff is so inside baseball and so much like this is how the system is designed and almost fetishizing the console sort of thing. That I don't really see much difference in this.
I would say it's more playfully done than that. Like that Mark Cerny presentation was so goddamn long.
Yeah,
this is Nintendo's way of doing it. They wrapped it in a game. They gave you little mini, like rather than tell you about how the shape of the the shape of the ear, the oral, I think, the channels of your ear affects how you particularly perceive a sound. Nintendo just fucking like gave you a quick description of it, had a little video that goes with the description, and then gave you a mini game to demonstrate it. There was an activity, it wasn't a game, where it's like, we're going to make the Switch make noise at you. I'm like, you mean with the speakers? No, with the Joy-Con. And that's what it does. It makes noise at you. Because you might want to turn your TV down for this one. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll turn my TV down for this one. And yeah, it just makes noise at you. It's so weird. It's so very weird. Across the room, there was one where it demonstrated noise cancellation. Like, it talked about noise cancellation in a very vague sense. But then it's like, all right, we're just going to show you. Go get a vacuum or something else that makes a lot of noise and turn it on. I'm like, what? Go get a fucking vacuum? And so there's a vacuum in this room, hidden in a little cabinet. I took it out, turned the vacuum on, and talked. And then it demoed it back to me. And it played my voice back to me, sans vacuum noise. I did it again with a drum demo playing on my laptop, and got to hear that. Like, it's dumb. It's dumb. I will admit to you fully, it's stupid. But it is, like, it demonstrated how the thing worked. They showed us the one with Mario, where it's like, play World 1-1 in 4K, where it's just slowly revealing the world as you go, rather than scrolling. And so it's to scale on my TV, on my big-ass TV. Playing 1-1 that way is insane on a 4K TV. It's just bonkers. But it was fun as hell. Like, it's the most fun I've had playing World 1-1 since I was a little kid. It's also the most times I've died since I was little, because it was so small on my screen. It was so small. But it gave you a concept of what, like, the resolution of 4K, how that compares to, like, what TVs were, what video games were a million years ago. And it puts it in a box. Here is what 256 looked like. And that you could just see the box of what is the focus area of 256. And you could see the rest of the world that you've revealed so far and how wide it is so far. Like, right now you're at 780 pixels wide. Now you're at 1,500 wide. You don't even get to the full 4K. Because World 1-1 isn't big enough to give you all of it. When you go in the tunnel, or in the pipe in World 1, there's a pipe about halfway through it that jumps you to the end of the stage. It renders the area beneath the screen. Like, that's a really cool and stupid and pointless feature, but it does give you an idea of just how much bigger 4K is resolution-wise than other sizes of resolutions that you've dealt with in the past. It does the same with 120 hertz motion versus 60 versus 40. There's one with VRR where it kind of shows you how VRR works. That's a variable refresh rate for those who are unaware. And it talks about the technology and why you would do, not just what VRR does, but why you would do it. What are the scenarios you would use it in? How does that help the game feel better? Like, it actually does help you talk more cogently about these topics. It's not a deep dive. This isn't for fans of technology. This is for the average consumer to better understand the features of the system and, yeah, maybe explain why it's so expensive. One of the many reasons it's so expensive. But I think they did a nice job with it. I think it's clever. I'm going to go through all the areas. I'm only through 4 of them. I'm going to go through all the areas. I'm going to play all the mini games I can. There was this weird, like, attempt to make a clapback at this thing where it's like, you can't get all the check marks if you don't have certain accessories. And it's like, yeah, no fucking shit. How are they going to give you the check mark for doing the demo with the Switch 2 camera if you don't have the Switch 2 camera? It's a demo for all the functionality of the Switch 2. That includes things like the fucking steering wheel. If you didn't buy one, you can't demo it. You ain't got one. Like, whatever. Don't try to create some kind of weird controversy out of this. It makes you look stupid.
That's what I saw. I saw that from IGN. They were like, you need $95 worth of this and that in order to complete the game. And I'm just like,
I need a TV too. I need a house. I need the fucking internet to download the game. I need a Switch too. I need clothes because I'm cold. Yes, you're right. You do.
You do. You need all of this stuff. You need arms. You need arms to play this game. You need hands.
That's right.
Fuck.
You need arms the game to play this game too. Fuck it.
Oh, man.
Like, it's just dumb. Like, yes, you can't demo components you don't own. Obviously, if you don't have a 4K TV, you can't do the demo with the 4K TV. You're right. You're right. So go buy, you may as well say you need a $400 TV too. It's just stupid.
It is. It's absurd. So much of that has just surrounded the Switch 2 about just people complaining about stuff that just to make drama out of really nothing. Like,
why can't I play any games on my Switch 2 that I got 8 days before launch? Well, because the day one patch enables Switch 1 games, and you don't own any Switch 2 games. That's why you can't play anything on it, dumbass.
Yeah, I've got to say, I've got one thing I've got to say, but the whole day one patch, it was a little bit ominous to me. I didn't go through it with Wii U, because I didn't have it until a couple of months after launch, but the Wii
U one was bad.
It was a sort of a day that lived in infamy or whatever. So it's like, oh god, I don't know about the idea of going through that. It's totally painless for me anyway. I assume for everybody, it just went really quickly. It no trouble pulling the update down, no trouble downloading, installing. Absolutely no issue whatsoever there.
Let's put it this way. It downloaded the patch for me, and granted, I have really fast internet. It downloaded the patch for me so fast, I hadn't finished cleaning up all the fucking little plastic bags the components come in. Like, I plugged it in, I powered it up, it said downloading an update. Alright, I hooked it up to the internet, it went and downloaded the update. I started, collecting all the little plastic wrappers that all the individual components are in, and I look down and it's restarting. And it's like, hey, go ahead and pair this with your Switch if you have one. And I'm like, oh, we're already at that step? Okay. The Switch itself needed an update, which is weird because I updated it the other day, but whatever. And then that thing started. They did
a bunch of stuff, didn't they? Like a bunch of updates for the software and I think the Switch itself on the eve of the Switch 2 launch. So, yeah, even though they'd done the firmware update for the Switch, the original Switch, quite shortly before that, but I guess there was something that needed adjusting
little bug
before
fixes
that
or whatever.
Yeah, but
so the girlfriend was here for the last 3 weeks, which is why I wasn't on the show, and she as I hooked her Switch up to the internet the other day so we could try out the game card sharing, which we ended up not doing because I realized, it wouldn't work after 2 days when the Switch 2 came out. Animal Crossing downloaded a patch, and she goes, what is Animal Crossing downloading a patch for? And I'm like, what? She's like, it haven't done a patch in forever. And the answer is for Switch 2, actually. That's why I got a patch. But a whole bunch of shit on my Switch updated in the last day. And then when it definitely
said, I mean, there was a bunch of games that they'd already talked about as having not Switch 2 editions, but that were getting patches that would, kind of take advantage of the fact that they were about to be playable on Switch 2 through the back compat and, therefore add in some sort of feature, or, correct for something that they couldn't quite sort of manage in the original version, like, some of the frame rate stuff with, Link's Awakening and, the Echoes of Wisdom, that came out last year. And, some other, I think, like ARMS got HDR support and, there was all of those, but it seems like, of course, because it is, kind of a not a hardware, back compat situation, it is a sort of translation layer and it's not going to be exactly the same and all that. Even games that they hadn't singled out as, kind of getting some sort of enhanced functionality probably might have needed to be patched just to ensure proper functioning, with the Switch 2. Basically, it's, so far, I mean, I've dabbled with some of the, kind of, back compat games myself. I've read stuff online of people testing stuff. Obviously, there's just so much stuch. There's God knows how much, to look at and all these different cases, because it's kind of and much of this is kind of what people kind of expected would be the case given the nature of the backwards compatibility solution that's being employed. But I guess it's kind of there's definite benefits to it, not just being a hardware thing that completely faithfully recreates how the games were playing, because a lot of games that had, uncapped frame rates and, dynamic resolution and stuff they can now run a lot closer to a stable frame rate, than they did in the past. I mean, I've seen at a Digital Foundry, their instinct was what is the thing that ran the absolute shittest on Switch, which in their judgment is Arkham Knight. the third Rocksteady Arkham Batman game, which apparently is pretty infamous on Switch, that it's just horrible, especially trying to drive around the open, city or whatever. And, they investigated that, and it's, again, there's still lots of compromises and things that don't get, fixed by being able to run on a system that has more horsepower available to it and stuff. But, the fact is it runs at a higher frame rate and more consistent frame rate. You've got, I think one of the most interesting ones is Bayonetta 3, which definitely was all over the place. With its frame rate, and now apparently that is much smoother and much more stable. So we've gone from this sort of strange position where you'd have games on Switch sometimes, including those Zelda games that I mentioned, the top-down ones, Link's Awakening, Echoes of Wisdom, where you'd say, "Oh God, why didn't they just cap the frame rate?" Like this. It's almost 60, but then it has this dips and stuff like that, and I mean, it was always worse dock than handheld, to be fair, but, people would think, well, couldn't you just, at a certain point, the fluctuations are distracting. It would be better if it was just consistent and stay, even if it's like lower. But to now, it's you wish you have certain games. You're glad they didn't do that, because now they can run smoother and more consistently on Switch too. We've got to come around on that.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff from the Pokemon game, Scarlet and Violet, where it's like, oh, this is night and day.
And that was very much a specific patch to, it's not a Switch 2 edition, it's not a paid upgrade, it's not an upgrade that's included in a subscription for the expansion pack or whatever, but it's a bespoke, it's not a passive upgrade like we're talking Bayonetta 3, like that hasn't had an update or anything, that's just, it's had uncapped elements, uncapped frame rates and stuff, so when you put it on this more powerful hardware, it can, the frame rate doesn't drop as much. But yeah, Scarlet and Violet, again, kind of a make good by the sound of it. You've heard it. I've heard it referred to as, unfucked edition, basically, because, apparently I didn't play that, but apparently it was that bad, on the base Switch hardware. But yeah, they've put some effort into not just enjoying the passive upgrades that I'm talking about with stuff like, Arkham Knight or Bayonetta 3 or goodness knows how many more, but specifically to get, the most out of being on this new hardware. And it sounds like it is pretty transformative.
Yeah, I've seen better visual clarity, better draw distance. The controls feel a little bit better, probably due to latency in the frame rate. Better frame rate, obviously. It's like, it feels like, just looking at video of it, it looks like a significantly different game. I was also kind of surprised by how many games are just getting, remote play. How many Switch 1 games are getting not remote play. What do they call that thing? Share play.
Game share, and then you can, there's there's game share within game chat as well. Like the online kind of, component of it, I guess.
Yeah. Big Brain Academy is getting locally and online game share. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is getting local game share or online game share. Clubhouse Games is getting both. Game Builder Garage is getting mouse controls, which is great. Like, that actually might make me play this game. Scar Violent got a lot. Game share is coming to Mario 3D World's Bowser Fury mode. And it's coming to 3D World for 4-player. Odyssey is getting it for Cappy. Somebody can do game share for Cappy. Like I'm surprised they're adding it to so many games. And these are all free. These are free updates. That's really cool. Like, there's a lot of stuff they're doing to make these work better. It is known that, some things are, maybe aren't performing as well as they did on the other system. There's some stuff that's still compatibility questions because this thing is doing a translation. It's not emulating a Switch. It's doing some translation layer magic to try to make it behave similarly. There's some games that apparently don't work right.
That's the thing. It giveth and it taketh away versus something that's just hardware, backwards compatibility, because on the one hand you get these passive updates for games that can now tap into the more powerful hardware, but on the other hand, you're going to get stuff, where it might take specific patches. It seems like they've been doing them, beyond even the ones that I think there was the updates for stuff like Pikmin 3 Deluxe and various other like first party games where presumably they'd identified some issues where it wasn't functioning quite right, just through the sort of regular translation process, and they needed to do an update to make it so that it would do better. And I can only assume that is going to be an ongoing process, especially when you're getting beyond the first party games of the many, many, many partner games. This is going to be something that goes on for a while, but at least there are these these perks to go along with the things that might be a bit of a struggle for a bit.
It seems like things like Xenoblade 3, which hasn't gotten a patch, has a more stable 30 FPS. Some of the Fire Emblem games perform a lot better. Three Houses was rough. Sounds like it's pretty stable now. Some of the Warriors games are maybe a bit better.
Age of Calamity was one that I saw the video of, and it was very smooth. It's like, is that even the same game?
Yeah, like there are people talking about that and Scar Violet as like this is basically a new game now. Like Scarlet and Violet apparently and Age of Calamity just feel like better games as a consequence of this. So like this is kind of weird. I'm gonna be honest. This is a little bit of a weird situation for these games. So there's games I'm gonna go pull out and try. I might actually play Scarlet and Violet. I never actually played that game. It sounds like the Arceus might not have benefited in the same way. Arceus
so that hasn't had a bespoke sort of update to take advantage of it the way that Scarlet and Violet and while I'm not going to say it was any kind of technical masterclass, or it certainly didn't seem like one to the end user, because I did own and play Arceus, it doesn't sound like it drew nearly the same amount of ire, for not really being up to snuff as Scarlet and Violet did. And Scarlet and Violet sold an enormous amount of copies, and even for Pokemon, it's one of the best-selling generations ever.
Oh, yeah.
And there's good and bad with that, I guess, because, it's wonderful that you sold so many copies, but I guess, there's the downside of, a lot of people got to see stuff that didn't really pass muster on a technical level, so I assume that would have provided the impetus to say, let's try and do a kind of make good here with something that is not a paid upgrade. It is just an update that when you apply it and run it on Switch 2, you get some really quite seemingly startling improvements.
Yep. The No Man's Sky got a big fucking upgrade, a free upgrade to Switch 2 if you have it. It's also on sale on Switch 1, so maybe take a look at it. But this brought it to feature parity with other versions of it on Switch 2. It introduced a bunch of other stuff. It apparently looks really nice. So there's people out there doing stuff. But most games seem like the games I played, I only had one or two where I noticed this feels better. But I'm trying to compare it to what I was playing when I played it on Switch 1. And lately the things I've been playing on the original Switch are less intensive. So it's kind of hard to say. We've been going for about an hour now, I think. Yeah, almost exactly an hour. Well, that's fancy. Aren't we special? So we're going to take a little break here, because I want to take a little break here. And we're going to come back and we're going to spend some time with the Mario Kart World. We're all going to go spend some time playing as Cal before we get back. So, if you'll give us a moment to go, no, I'm not even going to make that joke. It's too crass even for my standards. We'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned? Question mark? Audacity, I'm disappointed, as always, in myself for trusting you, and in you for betraying that trust. But hey, we're back for Radio Free Nintendo. Yeah, it's Radio Free Nintendo. That's the name of the show. And we talked a lot about Switch 2 Welcome to start the show, and we're going to talk now about the other. I was going to say the other big game for the Switch 2 launch, but fuck, Welcome Tour is not. No, Welcome Tour is not. We're going to talk about the big game for the Switch 2 launch. Yeah. There are other games, obviously. Like the other games. But the one that 90% of Switch 2 owners probably own right now, which is Mario Kart World. Obviously, John, you haven't had a chance to play it yet.
Correct.
So you could pepper us with questions as they pop into your head. Feel free. The rest of us have played it to varying amounts. I mostly focused on Welcome Tour for the benefit of the show. Greg, you said you've poked at some of the modes to try to get a feel for it.
Yeah, just again, like I said, I've done a smattering of all sorts of stuff. You know, the GameCube games, the N64 app. Some of the back compat stuff. So I was definitely quite interested in like the N64 app specifically, and some of the back compat stuff because, you know, I think it's about, especially OLED modeled Switch, like when you had a game that was actually running at 720p, you know, the native resolution of the handheld screen, you know, they look really nice. And, you know, kind of, I guess one of the things I was thinking about, you know, with the new screen, obviously it's a lot, you know, it's physically bigger. It has the higher resolution, but like how kind of smeary or something might the less, you know, the kind of games, the 720 games look now, you know, because instead of being a, you know, kind of exact match for the native display resolution of that handheld screen, they're now getting kind of upscaled. So I definitely spent a bit of time looking at stuff like that. And, you know, I think things look generally pretty good. I mean, the thing is, like I said, the larger screen is going to kind of put some scrutiny on stuff, you know, anyway, just by virtue of it being physically bigger. But it did eat into the amount of time I had for Mario Kart somewhat, but I've still done a couple of Grand Prix. I've did the Knockout Tour, one of those, kind of offline single player, and then, some casual, like, online races as well.
I've done only single player so far. I did the knockout mode, because that's interesting. And I did one circuit of the more traditional single player. I've done 3 knockout rounds, I think, and I've done a little bit of navigating the open world.
Yeah, that's actually something I haven't done, is the free roam yet. No.
Yeah. It's interesting.
I've read that there's not much to do beyond just kind of some coin gathering and stuff like that.
There's
I don't know.
little challenges.
I've seen unfair compare. Well, it's funny. I've seen the criticism that there isn't really much to do, which is probably fair, but also comparisons to Forza Horizon, and I'm like,
that's all Forza Horizon is, though.
Like, Forza Horizon is just like everything all across the map. Exactly. That's the whole point of the game, is just to have like a ton of stuff to do across the map, right? I just think it's a bad comparison.
Yeah, like I would be very interested in adopting some of the Forza Horizonism.
For sure.
But it's not what that game is.
Yeah, exactly. It's I don't know. It's I feel like Forza Horizon is a bad comparison, but people do it online just because it's the only apt comparison.
Right, it's what they have. There is the Burnout Paradise?
Yeah.
Is that the open world?
That's from several generations ago.
Yeah. But like in terms of like open world, just drive around, do whatever the fuck you want, but also it's a racing game rather than open world racing. And Forza Horizon's a mix of those, where it's like sometimes there are challenges that's literally just get here, I don't give a fuck how you do it, you figure it out. Which is actual open world racing, one word, or open world - racing versus open world, racing, which is it is an open world game in which racing sometimes happens. It does both of those things. The free roam stuff, you can use it to find the food that will give you alternate versions of characters. So far, I've only been able to do that once, because many characters don't have alternate versions. So I played as Donkey Kong for a little bit.
Yeah, Donkey Kong wasn't available from the beginning when I played.
No.
I was wondering if that
I
was
had
like
to unlock him.
Yeah, it was the first character I unlocked.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. I was kind of like, I'll go with DK because he's been revised, and then it's like, no, it can't be DK. I was surprised.
Nope.
So it's like, okay, I'll be Yoshi. You've twisted my arm, and I've got a couple of those meals, and there's one Yoshi costume that's like walking right up to the line of being Boshi from Super Mario RPG, but doesn't quite go there. I don't know whether they just
with the serial number filed off.
They don't want to, offend Square or something, but it's like it's biker Yoshi, and he's got shades, and he's got the spike choker thing. Like it's almost there, but they didn't quite go there.
Yeah, I played some Grand Prix with Karen, and did some of the free roaming stuff. I don't know, it's true that the free roaming was not like full of stuff like at every, you can't go like a few meters before bumping into something interesting. It's not really like that, but it is. At least for the first few minutes that I played it was like interesting to just do nothing, dick around, maybe like see like, okay, like there's a P-switch there, I'm gonna do that. Okay, like these panels, like I haven't really, because Nintendo Today, the app, is so boring, like I haven't actually looked at any of those videos that reveal, oh, here's a thing from Super Mario Kart World that you'll be able to do. Like I had no expectations for what the missions would be like, and I'm pleasantly surprised, I guess. I'm like, okay, there's like a UFO there, like what's that about? And then like you go into its very obvious kind of tractor beam, and then like, okay, it abducts you, but then you control the UFO thing. So for a little bit, I was just flying around as the UFO. I kind of messed up that opportunity by not going over a place that's only accessible by UFO. But still, like, it was like, okay, cool. Like, there's little stuff like that you've never seen in a Mario Kart game before. So
I haven't found that at all. So now I'm like, well, shit, I need to go back out there and look at it.
Yeah, like, it was at night. Maybe that has something to do with it. But it was in the middle of the road in the desert. I don't know if there's, like, an Area 51 in the Mario Kart world, but apparently if there is one, I found it.
Interesting. So I found a couple challenges, which is you hit the P switch and then a thing happens. But one of them involves you gaining altitude for a jump, and I can't figure out how you're supposed to do it because you have to catch a coin. And then the other one I was able to complete after some degree of effort.
I did have a challenge that had me kind of hitting several ramps to go up a how do you call it? A cliff. But like I would hit the cliff, and so like the trick was to not hit the second ramp too fast. Otherwise you would miss like one of the two boosts that are on the ramp. So sometimes like it can be a little bit tricky like that. Maybe it depends on what character you're using also. You might need to experiment a little bit.
And that is like something out of the challenges in Forza Horizon specifically,
right,
where there are challenges that you can complete in any car, whatever. They're just they're more skill based. And then there are ones that are really saying like, here is the challenge in front of you. You need to go build a car, if you don't have one, for this challenge. Like it's going to ask you to do something very specific, and you're not just going to be able to get in any old car and do it. There were, in fact, jumping was one of them. There was frequently in the weekly challenges a long jump challenge. And it would be like, jump 6,000 feet off this ledge. And so you had to build a car that didn't weigh a goddamn thing, but could go 1,000,000 miles an hour in a straight line. That was its only job. And so building that car, and then you just had to execute with it. And a lot of times the car you had to build, really upped the skill ceiling for doing the action because it required you be more precise because the thing is built so single-mindedly. So it created a different version of the challenge on top of it. Like, I could absolutely see some cars are better than others. I saw that when I did the knockout mode, that I always felt like I couldn't catch the car in first place until I went and looked at more detail on the car. Because it doesn't actually surface the car performances when you pick a car. You have to go into a secondary screen to see them all.
Yeah, that was like that in Mario Kart 8 as well.
It was.
Yeah.
I have played Mario Kart 8 in a year and a half at least, so it was like,
Sure.
oh yeah, these actually matter. But once I changed to a car that is more top speed focused, because in knockout mode, there's not really the whole like starting the race again every time. You start up one time and then it's really just like, just keep going. If you don't decelerate, you don't need to worry about acceleration. You need to worry about handling and top speed. So like I switched to a car that did that and I was able to close the distance on the leader. Cause like the leader would just get out there and there's nothing you could do about it. And it's so much more pronounced than a regular race. So yeah, like figuring out what the right car for some of these challenges in is probably going to be a thing. I'm sure somebody will post best arrangement for every challenge by the end of the week, but I'm not going to dig into that. So, the other thing I did see, just kind of going around the world though, is that there's a lot of stuff you won't even get to in knockout mode. Areas that are just like nominally unreachable that they put in there, and there's little stuff in there. I did see that there are other characters in the world, so I'm kind of curious what happens if I go over to them. What do they do when you reach them? Or can you race them? Can you interact with them? Like, what's their whole deal?
Yeah, I haven't tried knockout mode at all.
Okay, so
No, I quite like it. I just have just the one so far, but yeah, it's kind of like if you've played F-Zero 99 and, you kind of have the Grand Prix kind of scenario there where it's like, okay, you get 5 races in a row, akin to the kind of cups that were in the original Super Nintendo F-Zero. We had 5 of them, but the difference is you start off with 99 and you're kind of constantly whittling down the number of cars during one of those individual races, but also, from race to race, right? So eventually you get to like the 5th race and you've got 20 cars left, and then it's just a case of whoever survives the last race. And now in this case, you don't have like discrete kind of races. It's just continuous. And I mean, even the Grand Prix has like a somewhat, it tries to like do that, to some degree. Like you do finish a race, but then like you have a rolling start when the next part of the Grand Prix begins. And it's meant to be, again, because of the whole idea of the contiguous world and all that. It's like, we're starting right where we left off at that first race and rolling start, and then gradually, the environment changes to be, the next sort of theme of the race there. But in the knockout tour, it's just a kind of totally continuous kind of scenario, and you've a bit like, the F-Zero 99 scenario. You just got to keep a certain, up the field, a certain position threshold to stay alive. Hence the name, naturally, the participants are getting knocked out as it goes, and that to me was pretty satisfying. I'm definitely interested to play that more online, because I've just played some like quick races online so far. Nothing that I didn't play that, but I would say as well with the Grand Prix, like, I do like the fact that, it's, you could say it's like a little bit of a, like, how much of a substantive difference is it really to just sort of like tie it into the whole, open world kind of conceit with the rolling starts and stuff. But it does give that sense of like a journey, and especially the end of the 2 Grand Prix Cups that I've played so far, it does feel like it's building to a more kind of legit climax than, typical Mario Kart kind of cups usually do. Like the scenario just kind of, the environment's changing and the scenario just gets more and more kind of big scale and crazy. Like the first cup, it kind of ends with the DK spaceport thing, and so you get like all these giant barrels rolling as obstacles, and kind of lean into the DK theme. And then with the second cup I played, you get the kind of the airship theme. It's like an adaptation of the airship course from the DS game, I think. Although it's obviously, again, with this whole idea of like, you know, you've got to kind of get there first and stuff. It's not just like a one-to-one kind of recreation. But again, it's an airship. There's all sorts of bullets, bills, obstacles, like all this stuff. It does feel like it's like, yeah, this is like the end of we build into something, and it's like really kind of feels quite different from, you know, where you started. Whereas, yeah, there's some Mario Kart Cups that feels like, oh well, you know, to maybe towards the end when it's like you get the Bowser Castle as the last track, or Rainbow Road as the last track. But this is, you know, the first 2 out of the 7 that you see available. And yeah, it feels like, you know, they're doing something there where like it actually is paying off on the premise, and also stuff that, you know, feels legit like Mario themed. You know, like some Mario Kart courses are just kind of at best like incidentally Mario flavored. You know, it's just like, oh, it's pastoral or you know, whatever. But in this game, like the DK stuff with the rolling barrels, you know, the airship theme, you know, Mario Brothers 3. Like, I really enjoyed
to see. I really enjoyed seeing, like in one of the desert tracks, this enemy that looks like the Easter Island statues from Super Mario Land.
Yeah, that's right. I noticed that. It's like, oh, Moai Head's like, it isn't Super Mario Land the only game that ever went there. Like, so yeah, it feels like a pretty deep callback for, you know, especially those Mario Land games that kind of segued into the Wario Land games feel, you know, like they don't get referenced that often. And there's, they really don't. Even the bits of the environment that aren't as, like, you know, like fully Mario flavored, like fundamentally as like, oh, it's a Bowser's airship or whatever. Like, there's so much stuff going on. You know, like you've got you've Goombas in their shoe. You know, like just mucking around or running across the road. You got the traffic and all this kind of the various different enemies, and you know, just there doing stuff, affecting things. Like it feels a lot more alive in that way. In
the Bowser stage, there is, you know, the Bowser head with a cannon sticking out of his mouth that are in the airships and stuff. There's those on the back of a car, and they're just firing at the racers for no reason. They're just blasting at them. It's like, oh fuck, what is happening here? This sucks. I don't want to be here. There's a giant bomb in cars, just driving around, exploding at you for no reason. It is vaguely chaotic in the Smash Brothers kind of way.
Yeah, like those bomb cars are from Double Dash, aren't they? Or
I think
like
so. There was one track in Double Dash that it was like the highway to, I guess, like their take on the Toad track from N64 for GameCube, and I think it had those exploding cars there, so I guess it's probably called back to that.
Yeah, like I've noticed that like they're everywhere, you know, like there's a ton of them. There's a ton of traffic. It's kind of weird. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but yeah, like you've got like 22 racers on the track.
24 sometimes, right? Yeah, 23 other ones. Yeah.
Okay, so 24. But sometimes like the tracks are so wide that it doesn't really feel that way. Of course, I was playing with Karen, and she wanted to get her Mario Kart legs, so we were playing on 50cc. So it's probably normal that it didn't feel too much was not happening, you know. But it felt a little bit empty. But the traffic on every like bridge, every big highway, it's you know, tons of toads and those bomb cars. You've got like trucks just leaving a trail of mushrooms behind them, so you just can keep getting free boosts from them if you follow them for a bit. I almost followed one off the track because it was turning, you know, like it was not racing with us, and it turned away from where I was supposed to go. But like there's there's a lot going on, I guess. Like even in the more straight and wide and, you know, quote unquote boring parts of the tracks.
Yeah, no, I think it does seem to me, I went straight to 150cc, which is an option I appreciate. I mean, it's been so long since I played Mario Kart 8 the first time, when it was just Mario Kart 8 before it was deluxe. I can't remember. It may well have let you do that too, but so, I mean, there have been, you know, in the deeper in the past at Mario Kart, you know, games where it would kind of force you to unlock the higher speed classes. So it's nice that they don't, you know, because I'd like to just kind of cut to the chase with that. And you know, yeah, the sensation of speed is not necessarily overwhelming even at 150cc because it's not 200cc. Like that obviously was something that came in with Mario Kart 8, not in the deluxe version or not even as paid DLC. It was just like a free update, the 200cc part, which was, that was really, really cool. I know there's been development interviews where they've said, you know, at this point, it's just something, it's not in the game. It might, you know, they can't really comment on the notion of whether it could come later or not. I mean, I guess it might be more complex given like this whole open world concept and stuff.
And the number of racers and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I mean, look, I'd be happy even if it comes back in like a limited form, like for time trials or, you know, narrower kind of things. You know, I would really like to see it, but you know,
400cc.
Yes, well, you know, the thing is, it did kind of feel like you was playing some sort of hack or something. You know what I mean? Like it was entirely official.
You were.
It felt like it was like, this is too fast, and I love it. I love the fact that it's too fast. And so, yeah, we haven't got that at the moment. Whether we'll ever get it, I don't know. But like, you know, getting to the 150cc, it was, you know, like it doesn't hit you like that did, or, you know, could still do when you play like new tracks, you know, when they added the booster course pass stuff to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe over the, you know, past couple of years. But you know, it was to me, it's still, with all the stuff going on that Guillaume mentioned, like it still feels like there's a lot to manage there.
Yeah, it does feel like it's, with all the extra racers, everything feels more chaotic than I'm used to, if that makes sense.
And I do think as well, like I don't know, but I guess it's all at this point, have I been hit with all the various different items in various different circumstances? But it feels like they've toned down like how much of a wipeout getting hit with things it is. Yeah. You are back on your feet and kind of off at, you know, accelerating back towards top speed faster because there's just, with the extra number of races and all this incidental stuff happening as well, like it just makes sense. Now I'm sure certain items probably still, you know, are a harsher penalty, you know, if you get hit with them under certain circumstances. But as a general rule, we kind of wondered, like, how are they going to balance this out differently? Because, you know, from the previous games, it probably will need to be. And definitely seems like it's like, yeah, okay, let's kind of, there's a lot of stuff that can happen, but, and it is going to hurt you, you know, if you get hit with anything, to lose any amount of speed or time, but you generally want to keep things moving more than was the case before.
The interesting thing I've run into, especially in the knockout mode, that makes knockout mode kind of frustrating, is, you're right, the stun isn't as much, but I found that just getting chain stunned is so much more frequent in this game, where it's just like bang, 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 bang. And
well, you got more people behind you to kind of to make the chain, haven't you? That's the
right. And you've been passed by 8 people. Like, I feel like the game needed not stun lock, the opposite. It needed essentially iframes,
more invincibility. But yeah, and that's definitely something I felt about Mario Kart before. And I guess that's another thing you could do to kind of to rebalance it, right? Is rather than focus on how much an individual kind of hit costs you before you start getting back up there towards top speed, you could say, well, let's give it more of a period of invulnerability so you can't get hit with something else. But yeah, they haven't seemingly gone that way.
I got hit by that motherfucker DK 3 times in a row because he had 3 red shells. It's like, I lost like 9 spots as a consequence of this. It was like, that's fucking annoying. Like he hit me twice, and then he passed me, which caused the third shell to hit me. I'm like, what? Fuck that shit. That's terrible. That's made me so mad. We talked about Kamek a little bit because they kind of hinted around Kamek in the direct. They're like, what does Kamek do? Well, it changes things on the track. Who can say? So far, I've been changed into the bat. I can't remember what the bat's called in the Mario context. But as a consequence, that appears to have unlocked the bat as a racer.
No, that's interesting. I got turned. I was playing, once I'd unlocked DK, I played Knockout Tour with DK, and I got changed into the cow. But weirdly, the cow was an initial play. Like you could play
at the start.
You could play as the cow from the beginning, as opposed to DK. So yeah, that wouldn't have unlocked anything, I guess.
But like, I got a prompt for the bat, like the same prompt I got when I unlocked DK mid race. So like, I haven't gone to check if the bat's in my selectable characters now, but it seemed to strongly imply they would be. Which is weird. I got turned into a Goomba one time. That didn't unlock anything because, of course, Goombas are there as well. The cow, when it gets food, doesn't seem to do anything. Like, I'm a little bit confused about what happens with the Yoshi food if you have a character who doesn't have other costumes. Because I've done it once with DK and unlocked off-road DK, which feels like all DKs are off-road DK. DK lives in the jungle. DK doesn't have access to roads. DK has access to an economy based entirely on a mechanic that will ultimately rot in a very short period of time. His economy is fucked. He can't build roads.
I mean, it would make more sense to have an unlock being corporate DK.
Yeah, there you go. DK in a suit.
Yeah.
DK as commissioner of Mario Kart Racing.
Exactly.
Tie not optional.
That's right. Black tie, please. Oh no, it's a power tie. It's one of those thin, narrow ones. So you know he's serious business. With the tie stay. You gotta have a nice tie bar to go with it. John, what's your tie bar of choice?
My tie bar?
Yeah, the little tie bar on the clip for your tie. Keep it flat.
I don't know. For
mine's
DK.
Mine's a nice antique bronze. It goes well with nice dark ties. I think business DK would appreciate an antique bronze. That's what I'm gonna go with. Yeah, I'm
definitely not a gold guy. I mean,
no. I have a cool complexion. I look terrible with gold.
Yeah, I'd probably go platinum or something like that.
There we go. Yeah, no, gotta keep it classy.
Do they do pink gold tie stays?
I mean, you could probably get them. I've
if they
seen
don't,
worse.
They'll do them in Mario Kart, presumably.
I've seen tie stays with skulls on them. Like, fuck it, anything's possible. I'm trying to imagine the person who's wearing a 3-piece suit, but it's like, I need a tie stay for this. Let me get one with a fucking skull on it. I need to take this down a little bit. It's too classy. I may have considered buying the skull tie stay just to fuck with people, but no. DK with a tie stay, but it's pinned to his fur. That's what I need. Yeah, I don't know, like, it feels like the whole, they spent a lot of time talking about this food, and it feels like it's got a relatively finite number of times you're actually going to gain anything from it. I would like that, even if you're in a character that doesn't have costumes, that getting the food does something. It's something unique to that character. Because that way, even if you're not DK or somebody else who has costumes, if you're a fucking cow, there's still reason to get it. Because otherwise, like, you're just getting it to get it. And that's not helpful. That's not useful. That makes that mechanic feel unfun for what seems to be the plurality of characters right now. There's a shitload of characters that don't have stuff because they're just like the skeleton fish or the fucking bat. You think the bat has an off-road costume? Bat doesn't even have fucking feet. Off-road.
Although, I don't know. I've unlocked Monty Mole, or was it always there? Anyway, so Monty Mole is a character, but you can, I was racing against one that had the sewer cover on their heads, just like in Mario 3. So they I don't know. Some of the non-main characters seem to have costumes.
Oh, huh.
So I don't know. Sometimes like it's been weird. Like I've unlocked costumes for the main Mario characters, and then but sometimes I haven't. You know, like I would get the doggy bag in the game, and I would see a costume, but then it wouldn't unlock in my character selection screen, and I still need to figure out why.
It might be related to the area that you picked it up in. There was some conversation about that in the Direct, or I mean in the Treehouse Live, that it might be related to where you are, if that makes sense.
Maybe.
I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, because I know that I did pick up the pizza as Luigi, and I got like Ultra Italian Luigi. I don't remember what he's called, but like he's super Italian, and yeah, I did not. I can't just like pick him in the character select screen. The same pizza made Mario into like tourist Mario with his sunshine vest or whatever.
His prison jumpsuit?
No. Like his sunny touristy.
The short sleeved shirt with the shines, like patterns on it.
Yeah. It's cute stuff. I don't know. Like it really only played it for a couple of hours, so there's still a lot to learn about the game, I suppose. Took me a while to discover what the my Kart had this little antenna on it that would just like flash yellow occasionally, and I was like, what the hell is that? Does that mean that someone's trying to race with me online? Does that mean that there's something in the area that I'm supposed to find? Like, is there some secret? Eventually I realized, like, oh yeah, like they talked about having assists in this game, right? Where you can just like maybe like have the game help you not fall off tracks. I think that's all it was. Actually, I forgot to turn that off.
I think it's on by default. I don't know whether it may be because they've had like steering assist in Mario Kart 8, but at various points. I don't know whether it was again. It was so long ago. I don't know whether it was there from the jump or whether they added it later. But maybe you could you chose to turn it on in that case. Whereas here, it's on by default, so you just gotta from the during a race you could just, it doesn't have to be from the menu outside of a race. It could be during a race. Just press start, turn that off if you want, and you just kind of go more normally. But yeah, I feel like every time I've raced so far, and the Grand Prix, they weren't terribly sort of difficult, even at 150cc to kind of to come top. Like you won like 3 out of the 4 races in each, but each time you kind of looked at all these like opportunities for doing the grind rail stuff and like maybe, kind of jumping up somewhere. And I just felt like I wasn't taking advantage of hardly any of those. You're kind of looking around and then stuff just kind of passes you by. And it is a lot going on, in terms of possible alternate routes, shortcuts, just things you can do that at this stage, I haven't kind of got the whole like, that where you could just sort of, instead of you do the hop like for the power slide, but without a direction left or right, and it just kind of charges up, and then you can use that to get up on things. And I'm not really kind of because again, I mean, I've not played it for more than a couple hours, if that, at this stage. A long way away from actually like integrating that into general like racing strategy at this point. And that's the thing, maybe that's where I should do some of the free roam, right? Because like if I kind of get that down, that kind of part of the mechanics down in the free roam, I can kind of take it back into the racing at that point. I've learned a bit more about how it works and where to employ it.
So you've done some online stuff, Greg. How does it feel? Because I haven't even touched it yet.
Yeah, just a little bit of quick races against people, kind of normal format races against a bunch of people. Is it, that as you might expect, you was quite full. I don't know whether it was at the hall like 20 odd complement every time, but it was definitely, more than, what we've been used to with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. over all these years. And so, again, it feels busy, but it also feels like, for all that, you're back up and running relatively quickly. So it kind of has a snappy feel to it as well. And of course, the thing is, you very rarely got a 200cc game online in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe if you're just doing quick play. Like, obviously, if you were setting up, like, particular rooms or tournaments or, like, dedicated to that purpose, that was one thing. But, if you just play quick play, to get as many sort of rivals as quickly as possible, just casual play kind of stuff, it was very rarely going to be that. It was usually going to be 150. Maybe you get a mirror, like, kind of class of a track, but so it doesn't so much feel like you're kind of going down in speed in this online multiplayer kind of setting as well. So yeah, it just seemed like a lot going on, and it got like decent finishes, but not particularly great. Bits of tracks that I didn't particularly know, so it was kind of interesting trying to adapt to those on the fly. That's what's going to be kind of fun, I think, is when you kind of get to know the tracks a little bit better, get to employ some of that kind of new way of moving and hopping around and driving up walls and stuff, and kind of seeing how much does that kind of get you ahead in online as time goes on, because you can bet early on there's going to be lots of people playing it and lots of people haven't seen all the tracks yet, and it's kind of like very chaotic, and then presumably it's going to like shake out a bit as time goes on. It's going to evolve as like, although Mario Kart, you think it'd be one game that of all games should be able to maintain a relatively robust kind of inflow of new players over time, as the system ages, because that's what Mario Kart 8 Deluxe did. That's how it keeps it keeps selling those units for pretty much the entire Switch life cycle. Because people buy Switches, they buy that game, and then they start playing it online. So I don't think it'd necessarily be as sharp as with games like a Splatoon, where it's like, okay, this is really fun for a while, and then all that's left, or the only people who are left are people who are very definitely better than me, will make everything kind of miserable. So I think it'd be more of a fun evolution rather than a crushing one, but we'll see.
Is there anything that you would miss with the Switch controller versus the Switch 2 Pro controller?
I think it's got everything, right? I mean, obviously you've got the extra buttons on the new Pro. You've got, the enhanced HD rumble. I think, I haven't got the Switch 2 Pro controller yet. I'm kind of holding out, seeing how, because I did get the GameCube controller, from the My Nintendo store with it, because like, that's not necessarily going to be that widely available. I don't think it's going to be any particular cheaper down the line necessarily. I think sometimes they've done discounts on those, like for the NES controller set maybe, but a lot of them, it's seldom, if ever, have they gone on sale. But the other thing is, like with the Pro controller, you might get some like themed ones down the line that might be cool to have. Mm-hmm. Like you've had some for Xenoblade, on Switch. You had like Monster Hunter, like some Splatoon, like graphics on there that might be. So I'm kind of like, I'm going to stick with this as with if I'm playing on TV like I was a bit today. I don't know how I'll probably play on TV a fair bit more with the novelty value of Switch 2 and just the fact that it holds up a lot better on a television than the original Switch did. And therefore, using the original Switch 1 Pro controller with that, I'll kind of see how that goes, and then if there's a point where it's like, here's like a chance to get a Switch 2 Pro, either relatively decent price, sort of God knows when that would be, frankly, or they do a variant or something, I'll probably make the jump then. But I think it's, there's not a huge disparity, right?
That's what I figured.
It sounds like people seem to suggest it feels better, like the sticks feel nicer and stuff, but I don't know whether it goes beyond that, right?
Yeah.
I I'm very curious about the Pro controller too. It was just a cost thing right now of getting one. They're on the actual Joy-Cons itself. iFixit posted a video where they did a teardown of them, and I'm going to just call them out. I'm going to put them on an incredibly irresponsible video. Wildly irresponsible, especially considering they sell parts to fix Switches, which makes them obviously highly conflicted. Where they use the phrase that the Switch 2 Joy-Con has, quote, the same problem as Switch, which is factually unknowable. Because the problem isn't that so they're basically saying it's contact-based hardware in the Joy-Con rather than some non-contact-based mechanism for detecting movement. First off, fuck you. That's not what the problem is. The problem is that they wore out. You can't possibly know what the wear pattern of the Switch 2's Joy-Con is going to be. You cannot. And so to say it has the same problem is a lie. It is a lie as of this moment until that thing comes true. And because they sell parts to replace things, it's also a lie that makes them look very bad. So as a comment, not to protect Nintendo's honor or anything, but just as a fuck you for making such a stupid, wrong-headed, wrong-minded, clickbaity, fucked up video title. But what we got out of that is, yeah, it's still a contact-based control stick, but it's structurally quite different. It seems to be more robustly built, almost as if they might have learned something and designed something different this time.
You'd certainly hope so. It was enough of a headache.
Which would make sense.
It was enough of a headache that you would think that it would greatly incentivize trying to cut off any such thing. But I guess that's why people are surprised that the nature of the mechanism, at least theoretically, leaves it open that such a or at least a similar problem could arise at some future point. But you would hope that this time they would have really had all the kind of the testing, the volume of testing to know this stuff ahead of the time.
They've talked about they've done a tremendous volume of testing on them. Like, do you just not believe them? No, because I think iFixit wants to sell more shit. I think that's what this really is. And that's why it's not just wrong, it's irresponsible and worthy of me reiterating, go fuck yourself. Because that's not how engineering works. You can't say, oh, they use the same, what I put in our Discord is, there were many bridges that used the same technology as the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Only one of them is the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Why? Because the specific conditions of how that technology was applied, the mechanisms in which it was applied, and the conditions under which it was applied, caused it to fucking buck around until it crashed into itself and fell into the water. The bridge that replaced it is functionally a very similar type of bridge, applying many of the same technologies, but they learned their lesson. And they built something different using the same technology. Which is a thing you can do if you're smart, or a thing you don't understand if you're stupid. So, hey, just because it uses the same technology doesn't mean it's gonna drift. So, this goes back to my whole rant about this thing should be free. Fucking hold on to your ass and wait to see what happens. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking for much. We found out that the Joy-Con on the Switch had problems very early. It did not take us very long to see the earliest examples of drifting happening. And
it's kind of shockingly early, really, when you think about it.
If you bought a Joy-Con later, which I did, or bought an OLED later, which I did, it did not drift the same way my OLED has gotten at least as much use as every other Joy-Con I ever had. With the exception of my first one that drifted and I replaced its sticks, and drifted again after a while and I replaced its sticks. It never drifted. It never, ever, ever, ever drifted. Why? Because they made improvements. And not just Nintendo, the vendor who provides them with the sticks. Because when the sticks are defective, guess who Nintendo's gonna go to ask for money back? Everybody here has an incentive to get that thing better. I'm sure they did the effort. They fucking called it out explicitly that they did the effort. So like, hold on. Let's see what happens. That's all I'm asking. Which is not technically true because I asked iFixit to go fuck themselves. So I'm asking for that, and I'm asking for everybody else to chill out and calm down. So those two things I'm asking for. These are two very simple and easy to fulfill asks. Reasonable asks, even. I would say, modest. They are, you might even call them modest proposals. So, just be calm, be good. But it feels different is where I was going with this. Like, the Joy-Con sticks like, I picked up the OLED after, like, I'm literally holding it right now. And I'm switching between them in my hands. It feels maybe a little bit tighter, but they could just be because they're newer. It feels like it's pushing back a little bit differently than the OLED does. But again, the OLED's a couple years old now and has seen very heavy use. So, is that it? I don't know. The whole console is heavier. I mean, it's bigger. It's appreciably bigger. So maybe it's literally just the mass of the device and how I'm perceiving it. Like, there is a certain amount of like how much resistance I'm feeling is a perceptive element to how the rest of my hand is biomechanically interacting with the device to support its weight. It's not like holding a fucking gamepad, but it's not, it's not entirely unlike holding the Wii U gamepad. The ergonomics are a lot better. The ergonomics are so much better. But, yeah, it's different. Like there is a clear and noticeable difference in how the Joy-Con stick feels.
But now, how does the screen look since you have the OLED and
yeah, so it's not as bright.
Yeah,
it's not as bright. We knew that was going to be the case.
Well,
like,
and it's kind of the big things is when you get those, kind of like probably as much as anything, like when you power it on, isn't it? And you get that sort of black screen. And the black is not as, sort of entirely black. It's got that kind of, screen, light to it. You could, even when it's, not displaying anything that actually is bright, like it's still got that bit of brightness there that you get with a non-OLED display. So there's that. But on the flip side, you've got the HDR component. Coming in for like you said, obviously for people who've got TVs with that, which my TV can do HDR, but it's not, I don't think it's particularly great. I mean, it's a set that I bought it in 2019, which is, a fair while ago now, but I think it came on the market in 17. So it's not really going to be, you're not going to be getting the most out of HDR. On TV for me now, it's going to be more of a portable thing in that regard. So yeah, there's some difference there, but I think it still looks pretty good. Like I said, it's bigger, so that's going to put some, kind of more scrutiny on certain things, and it's a different resolution. So, it's certain things that look like sharper before are the slower, the smaller size, and being the native resolution is not going to look so clean and sharp anymore, like back compat stuff. And also there's something about, again, it's just having played so much on the OLED Switch over the past 3 years or whatever. I don't know how much this is getting used to something, or whether it's because the display, is a VR display, as you mentioned, JB. It can do different frame rates. It's not just locked to one kind of refresh. But there's something different about motion on it. Like, motion just seems kind of different here or there. Like even for stuff that's kind of meant to be just like kind of 60 and seem stable. Obviously, I'm not capable of doing any kind of frame counting or anything, but there's just a different kind of quality to how things kind of move on this screen, I guess. Again, how much of that is because of just it being bigger and all that kind of stuff, I can't say based on this limited amount of time, but it's going to be a little bit of process of getting used to, just because I played the OLED OLED so much, especially in portable play, that, there's going to be, and I'll probably be using the OLED still quite a lot, I would have thought, to be honest, at first, because I had a ridiculous amount of stuff with it, well over a terabyte of stuff, installed to that system. I did thought of just like, let's just move everything over to the Switch 2. It was not going to happen straight away. I'm going to kind of bide my time about, what to do with the SD Express, maybe waiting to get a bigger size, because the initially available sizes are just going to fill up really fast anyway. So for now, I think I'm still going to be juggling the two a bit, and then at some point, it predictably is just going to kind of phase towards the Switch 2 screen. But it's got its strengths as well as that one obvious kind of weakness of not being OLED.
And the reality is, finding a 120 hertz 1080p VRR OLED at a price that is reasonable is not something that really existed in the market at the time the Switch 2 was being designed.
Yeah.
Like it just wasn't there.
Yeah,
so
it'll be years
They couldn't
out.
put it in.
Yeah.
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 It's not Nintendo trying to get you to buy a second Switch 2 6 years down. Like they just couldn't get it. Like they would not have been able to, like maybe they could have found them on the marketplace. Maybe they could have even been affordable, but they might not have been able to find them at the volume they need to produce as many Switch 2s as they wanted to produce.
No, you said, the general market predictions have been, that this is going to be one of the biggest launches ever, the 15 million, maybe more, in the first sort of period, the year or so. So, I mean, and you presumably you want to be responsive to demand, if there's, more than you thought, in demand, you want to be able to scale up as well. So there's a lot of practical realities and limitations that go into this rather than just like, how much would it, cost, to make and all that kind of thing.
I did want to mention one other thing about the Joy-Cons that's different. It's got the magnetic connector to the system itself rather than a physical connector, which is something they had actually originally planned for the first Switch, but they really couldn't get it going in time. This is a component that is less likely to wear out.
Listeners might remember that's what happened to my launch Switch. It was definitely a driving factor for even though it was probably worthwhile just by itself, like with a much better screen on the OLED model and all that, like the rail just becoming a constant problem, you especially when you're playing online and, then it's like, guess what? You've disconnected one of your controllers. And so like that messes things up if you're trying to play games online and stuff. So that was, I understand, as you said, it's pretty well documented that they probably understood the weaknesses of that kind of mechanism over time and heavy kind of use, but it's what they could go with at the time. And now, this seems to be, a more kind of durable and preferential kind of solution for, the long haul for over this generation.
It does feel very secure. The release button, once you understand how to engage it, it's not like just press button and it release. You have to kind of like pull it a little bit. Seems to work quite well. It doesn't really wobble when it's connected, but I learned from Welcome Tour, you can connect the Joy-Cons in backwards for some reason if you want, because they are like it's a mirror image on both sides. You can connect them upside downs with the blue on the red side and the red on the blue side.
I actually did that. You don't need the Welcome Tour to find that out. Like I automatically just like. I wasn't looking. I know it's color coded. I felt really stupid afterwards. But I put the Joy-Con in there upside down. I was like, oh, weird. Like the power button's at the bottom this time? How does that make sense? And then, eventually I caught on.
Well, you don't need Welcome Tour to get to do that, but Welcome Tour does have a fun animation where it shows you the different ways you can configure it, and then it cautions, we don't recommend doing this because it won't charge in this configuration. I was like, oh, the Joy-Con buttons being on the back isn't why you don't recommend it. It's the fact that it won't charge back there is the problem, not that the buttons are facing away from you. I see. Fucking weirdos. But yeah, you can do that. I actually did it just to see it, and sure enough, like, yeah, it'll work. It doesn't charge, but it'll do the business. It's neat. I don't know. Like, it's an interesting solution to a problem of their own creation, the detachable controller. That seems to work okay. I like the Joy-Con grip more this time. The Joy-Con grip actually has some degree of angling in the little hole for the camera, for the mouse. Again, new facts learned from fucking Welcome Tour. In order to elevate the mouse higher up so that it can be more effective on a non-even surface like a pant leg rather than a desk, which is how most of them work. So the camera's much closer to the desk. This creates a better focal length and gives it a wider area. And there's actually a demo with the camera so you can see what it's seeing. And so you can see how it's tracking the surface. It's very low resolution. They compare it to other cameras in Nintendo history. And it's even lower resolution than the Game Boy camera. And they put two images next to each other to show you what that means. It's like, wow.
That's pretty
so
cool.
Weird.
That's weird, but very cool. Almost like neat trivia for the system.
Yeah. But it takes photos at 1200 frames per second.
Yeah.
So that you can get smooth motion. It's so weird. It's so fucking weird. What a fucking... Welcome Tour is great. It's worth $10 just for Nintendo being maximally weird. Switch 2 it feels... But I say this. The Switch 2 launch, alright, let me separate two statements that feel completely incongruous. So I'm gonna handle it right now. Switch 2's launch feels uneventful. And yet, I am fully confident that Mario Kart World and the Switch 2 itself will sell a gorillion units. And so, what's the divide here? And I mentioned this earlier. I think it's just the Wii's launch and immediate launch window was so, the Switch, was so intense that it broke my brain forever. And I'm kind of surprised Nintendo doesn't have a single player focused product out sooner.
It's interesting, is it? Because you got to say, it's been a long time since they've had really. You look at overall, the DS is weird because it was a hugely successful system. The launch is kind of. I guess it was successful enough, but the lineup and everything about that. But you can leave that out of it, I guess, because since then. The two really successful launches are Wii and Switch, which both had the cross-gen Zelda thing. That's what they had in common, and then other than that, you've had 3DS, which was not a very successful launch. Wii U, that was not a very successful launch. And they had some games that had some sort of track record of commercial success. Obviously with 3DS, you could say, Nintendogs plus Cats. Nintendogs was a huge hit, so they probably thinking, that's got a lot of commercial appeal, right? But maybe the problem with it was very much a particular time and place, and it wasn't launch either. It
was on an established platform.
The DS had, but it was really that kind of very steep ascent that it kind of underwent in 2005. But there was a lot of things that went into that, and it wasn't a launch thing. And then, of course, New Super Mario Brothers, New Super Mario Brothers, huge series, right? But none of them had launched a console before. So I guess even, as something as absolutely colossal as Mario Kart, it hasn't, launched a console like this, but it was almost a launch title on Switch, but you're coming, about 6 weeks later or whatever it was, the deluxe version there. But it wasn't certainly alone in that because, Breath of the Wild was already there. And, that was the kind of model that had worked with the Twilight Princess as well. So it's still kind of fair to wonder, maybe could this not be the really obvious slam dunk that it seems to be when Mario Kart is so powerful and You know, it does seem like they've found an angle that, like, differentiates it from just the, you know, the kind of maximalist nature of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at this point, with all the extra tracks and all the extra stuff that came into it eventually. But I'd still be surprised, as you said, if it doesn't just sell an enormous amount, at least early on. And then the real question becomes, with the cost factors and with some of the uncertainties in the markets and all that kind of stuff, can it sustain that momentum? And indeed the software, as again you kind of alluded to there, Jed. Will the software help them sustain the momentum? Stuff like DK Bonanza obviously is you know, being in that essentially Mario Kart 8 Deluxe spot of like, okay, yeah, the system comes out, hopefully it's successful, here's the next kind of big thing like 6 weeks later. It's an important slot. Obviously Mario Kart 8 Deluxe did very well in that slot. Will Bonanza do?
Still is.
Will Bonanza do as well in that slot, being a different kind of game? If you kind of swap like which one is the single player and which one's the multiplayer online focused, like, you know, does that have any consequences? But there's still a lot of questions to be answered, and you know the schedule upcoming, you know, is interesting, especially because I don't think we could have mentioned this last week, but I don't think we did. I was surprised when we found out about the Pokemon launch date for Legends Z2A is going to be in October, not November. Right. Like virtually every major Pokemon launch, Legends Arceus accepted, because that was like in January, because there was already
very early.
There'd already been a major Pokemon launch in the preceding November, just 2 months earlier. But going back to like the middle of the 3DS generation or whatever, like with the globally synchronized Pokemon launches, like they've pretty much all been the big ones in November. So I thought that was interesting that it's like, no, Legends Z2A is going to be in October, when oftentimes with Nintendo stuff, you know, over the years now, that's been when the Mario game comes out, right? That's when, Super Mario Bros. Wonder came out. That's when Super Mario Odyssey came out back in 2017 was October. I thought that was kind of interesting what that says about, you know, what it will or won't be like coming in around November, or it's how it's all going to kind of fit together, and how well these titles are going to complement each other with building that momentum and making sure it isn't just a hot start that then kind of cools off. Those are all still questions to be answered.
Yeah, and they're not participating in the summer games, whatever, which is also going on this week. And there's no announced direct. So we're just going to have to wait and see. I would guess maybe right before Donkey Kong we get something, or right after Donkey Kong we get something. But it could be as late as August that we get a real briefing on what come next. But yeah, very curious. Like, this thing is bought entirely on potential, whereas on Switch I was like, I need to play Zelda. I want to play Zelda. That's enough for me to buy this system.
Well, it's funny, you know, we talked about it when the Switchmas thing happened, you know, January of 17, when it was like, oh yeah, and Zelda's, you know, it's coming out in early March, and, you know, Breath of the Wild is going to be the launch title for it and everything. And it was, oh god, like Zelda's coming out like really soon. It's real. It's happening. Yes. You know, and that kind of moment was like, oh, okay. You know, there was it really ratcheted up the fear of like, it's imminent and it's a big deal. I feel like, you know, obviously it's never going to have the same breadth of that, you know, because Zelda is just a much bigger franchise. But I feel like we're still missing that moment for those of us who care about Metroid Prime 4, because they haven't given us a damn date.
They sure haven't.
You know, it's like, and the thing is, we've seen the Treehouse stuff, you've seen a lot more of it. It does feel more real in that sense. But until it has that date and it's like not that far away, it's not going to feel that real to me, because it's been so damn long. You know what I mean? I mean, 18 years is just ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, it's obviously been other Metroid stuff, I know, but in terms of Prime games, that's 18 years. That is longer than the gap between Return of the Jedi and Phantom Menace. You know what I mean? Like, it's an age. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
You know, we still kind of feels like, even though it's like, you know, we've seen the game, we've seen some details and stuff, it still feels like this kind of phantom thing, this like far off thing that isn't quite real to me. But I will get there, I'm sure. It's not too far away, but it's kind of crazy that we're this deep into 2025 and it still feels that kind of distant.
Yeah, like it makes me wonder if they know when it's going to be, or if they're just like, this year sometime we'll figure it out based on other things coming along, or maybe its own thing coming along. But we'll see. Touch on the eShop real quick. It is much snappier. The interface is much better. I'm much happier.
Yeah,
but,
I'm so a few weird things. So did you guys manage to download anything while the system was off?
Off.
Because mine, like, just... Okay. Because, like, it was, you know, like, my system... I don't know. I feel like the Switch was pretty good at downloading stuff while it was... what's the word? Not off, but...
Asleep.
Asleep, yeah. On standby. But, like, in this case, like, I don't know. It just refused to. But the Switch 2 seems to be... Like, it downloaded everything while I was playing Mario Kart. I wasn't playing online, so that helps, I'm sure. But like that's when it did its downloading.
Switch paused downloads when you launched online-enabled applications. So like I was just getting updates and download updates and like DLC download alerts on the thing while I was playing Mario Kart, pretty much especially when it got the fucking Smash Brothers. Christ, because I own every piece of DLC there is for that goddamn game, including all of the Mii costumes. Which apparently don't work right. I don't know. I've heard some things. I need to dig into that. So
I did notice that some of my stickers just appear as a random generic icon.
Weird.
Yeah.
Weird. That could be stuff.
But I didn't do the system transfer though. Like I kind of just went and manually added. It's kind of funny. Like in your virtual cards. Like it almost looks like a virtual card, but it's just for DLC, and it's it's slightly different looking.
Weird, very weird. I think I'm good. Do y'all have anything else you want to talk about?
I mean, just very random things. I did play a little bit with the GameCube Nintendo Classics. I tried with F-Zero. And I have no complaints. It's a really good experience, actually. The first thing that happened was like when I launched the game was like, okay, well, we found a 149 blocks of memory card. Do you want to create a file? It's like, yeah, sure.
That in itself was like oddly nostalgic, though. It was like, oh yeah, this was a thing on GameCube.
Like the biggest size of memory card that you used to be able to get. Cool. I wonder how long it will take to fill that up. Probably never, with the limited number of games that we'll probably get for this thing. But so created my save file. I forgot that you can go into the options of F-Zero for a widescreen mode. When you do turn that on, like it's seamless. It just the sidebars where you can see like your Nintendo account icon and like the whatever like controls displayed or whatever, like those sidebars just disappear and the game takes up the full screen. I did run into, so I was playing it on the system. I was playing it portably, so I don't have and I couldn't have used the GameCube controller, which is an issue for this game. Because in order to boost, you have to be holding down the A button, which is the accelerate button, and press the X button Y button at the same time, the one at the top of the GameCube controller. But if you look at your Switch 2, the A button and the Y button are in the two positions where you can't
you can't just
comfortably press one.
You can't overlap them.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So what you have to do is you have to go change the button. You have to remap the buttons. Now I did that with the new kind of the Nintendo Classics, like the in-system Nintendo Switch like thing, right? Like where like
Yes.
it shows you this is accelerate, and this is like this button does, is the brake and this and that. So it explains to you, it shows you what the functions are, and then you can remap to what you want. So that's a very good experience. But just because it tells you, okay, like the Y button is now the brake, it's kind of easy to forget that when you go back into your game and then like you go change some settings and then you have to back out of that setting screen with the B button. Actually now you have to press the Y button.
Oh, sure.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, so you have to keep that in mind. Also, F-Zero has in-game remappable controls, so maybe you just go do that and then you won't have to keep in mind that like now the Y button is the B button.
But yeah, obviously the nice thing about the in-app, kind of remappable controls is that it's doing it for specific controllers. So it's like, okay, yes, for that, where you're doing it portably, so you're just using the Joy-Con attached. Like, yes, I want the buttons to be differently. I do have a GameCube controller, which I could do tabletop or on TV. I don't want the buttons to change for that because the layout makes sense for a GameCube controller. So that's where, that's what's cool. And they've implemented that for the N64 games now, which, was something that they've been lacking for a while. And because that update went live, before the Switch 2 launched, because it's not exclusive to Switch 2 the way that the GameCube games are. Yeah, I'd already kind of started doing some remapping for like the Zelda games and the Rare shooters ahead of time, essentially. And then, then downloading the N64 app on Switch 2. Those changes have been applied, and now you also have on Switch 2. I mean, you've got the CRT filter if that you're interested in that, but you've got rewind on Switch 2. So that's where it's kind of I don't know whether it's necessarily got that same sort of crisp, clean scaling as it's got on Switch 1 because 720 was an even 3 times increase on the original N64 resolution of 240, but having the rewind is, something that you probably, especially certain games, you can imagine Majora's Mask, so if, for instance, might be quite useful to use rewind there and stuff. So yeah, I think I'm probably going to be getting the most, certainly the GameCube games because they're exclusive, but also, N64 I might get quite a bit of use out of, on the Switch 2.
I did use the mouse a little bit beyond Welcome Tour. It works surprisingly effective, so that's neat. Anything else we want to touch on?
I guess the last really random thing, this is really weird, but apparently, a bit considering, maybe to give the Street Fighter 6 version a go. I liked Street Fighter 4 on PS3 and eventually got the 3D version on 3DS, like when it was cheap, later and stuff. But apparently, in the update that's sort of coincided with the Switch 2's launch with the, more character, another character and, various other things, they've added more NES games that you can play in the kind of like vault section or whatever. And one of them is NES Bionic Commando, a game that has hardly ever been re-released. And I always wonder whether it ever would be in any context, but somehow we've got NES Bionic Commando inside of Street Fighter 6, which it seems odd to say it, but that is a non-trivial factor that inches me closer towards wanting to buy it because it's like, well, how else am I going to officially play NES Bionic Commando?
Nice.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with it. The new, who would have thought the new system would feel better than the old,
go figure.
7-year-old system. Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, I do run into things here and there. Like, I remembered as I was trying to wake up the Switch with the Game Pro, the Pro controller. Like, oh yeah, I can't do that with the Switch 1 Pro controller.
You can put it to sleep though, which is weird.
Right? Yeah, but you can't wake it up, which I feel like there's something petty from Nintendo about this. Like, I refuse to believe that the Pro Controller just isn't powerful enough to wake up the Switch 2.
Yeah, ultimately, whatever. I'll just press the button. Because I gotta go pick up the controller anyway. It's really just more, do I remember to press the button?
Right.
Yeah. And it'll get to the point where it's just muscle memory.
Mm-hmm.
But for the time being, it's gonna be a while. Like, I changed where I put my keys when I come in the house 18 months ago, and I still get it wrong sometimes because of muscle memory. Like, it's gonna take me a while to remember to press the goddamn button every time.
And one final thing, probably my favorite feature, something that I really missed while, with the Switch for a long time since the downfall of Twitter. You can just go into Album, and from the album, you can go to Upload Settings.
Oh.
And you choose your Nintendo account, and then you've got automatic uploads. You can turn that on, and now go download on your phone the Nintendo Switch app. Nintendo Switch app, I know you've forgotten about it. It's a Nintendo app that came out, like, again, with the original Switch. And now you can just go and get your videos and your photos from there. Your stuff just gets automatically uploaded to that app, and you can go and retrieve it. And you've got 28 days or like 30 days to do so, whatever. And so basically, posting on social media is back, and that's basically all I did on social media. So I'm very happy.
There you go, John. You got any questions for us? I know you're going to get it tomorrow, so that's kind of moot point.
Yeah, I'll get it tomorrow. Can any of you guys hijack a FedEx plane for asking for a friend? Actually, it's actually coming in not by plane, obviously, but it's coming in from Dinuba, California. So I don't know where
that's going to be the plot for the new prequel reboot of Castaway. That's why he ends up stuck on the island with. Who says product placement in films doesn't work?
Right,
John. I'm gonna tell you right now. If you get shoes, I'm gonna laugh. I'm gonna laugh. I'm gonna laugh so hard. I'm gonna laugh at your suffering. Look, it's FedEx, John. It's not coming by plane or by car. It's coming by. It got lost, and we had to go back and find it.
Well,
and by intern delivering it.
Well, this is what I'm worried about, right? I just saw on Reddit somebody had the open box where basically the console is like flush with the outside of the box, pretty much, and I've heard stories about, like GameStop's stapling receipts to the box and like damaging the screen, like just dumb stuff like that. And so I'm just waiting. I'm like, is this thing actually going to come to me? I mean, it's Best Buy, and I've ordered stuff from Best Buy before, and I've never had a problem.
They taped my receipt. They taped my receipt to the box, put the box in a bag, put the bag in another bag. Like Best Buy handled it with care.
Yeah.
Now, FedEx has never handled anything with care ever in its history, so I wish you luck.
Same thing with, FedEx. FedEx is the wild card here, but, also I'm not ordering it from Amazon, so, I mean, I would not order this thing from Amazon, because Amazon will just, like, ship it to you. They'll just, like, pick the box up and, like, slap an address sticker on it and, like, throw it into the mail. Amazon just doesn't care, so...
I mean, it's your choices are Amazon, which is just going to do whatever. I live literally next to an Amazon facility, so my stuff just gets delivered like hours after I order it. It's great.
Yeah.
FedEx, which will just do whatever they want. Like, we're going to kick your box. It's fine. UPS, which is going to charge you a lot of money, but it will get there. Or DHL, in which I'm pretty sure they're required by company policy to stomp on every box and lose it.
Yep.
So those are your choices. Have fun.
So we'll see. It's supposed to arrive here between noon and 4 p.m. tomorrow. So
well, I wish you luck in that endeavor.
Yeah. Thank you.
You could have joined the rest of us. Actually, what's interesting is Best Buy didn't skew their launches. They just said midnight Eastern everywhere.
Yeah.
So it was a completely reasonable time on the West Coast.
Yeah, like the thing is, a friend of mine asked me why I didn't do store pickup, and really it was because I was in such a frenzy to just get the damn thing ordered.
No, that makes sense.
That I was just trying to get the order through.
It was nice to imagine that somebody out in like Salinas, California is just like, I'm gonna go from work and just go have a nice dinner, and then get in line and pick it up and go home. Mm-hmm. And whereas I'm like, I'm going to get off from work, I'm going to work out, I'm going to have dinner, and then I'm just going to sit in my room for 3 hours while I wait to go leave again.
Yeah.
It's fucking sucked, man. But I got a coin. I got a coin for my endeavors. You'll never have that coin, John. You will never. I'll just fucking give it to you next time I see you. Fucking this piece of shit. It's probably made out of melted down hard drive cases or some bullshit.
Yeah. I wonder what those things are, because I mean, somebody is on eBay selling those things.
Oh yeah,
right now.
and selling them, and they're going to get no money for them because they had millions of them. I'm very curious what they're made of, though. That I might actually go try to figure that out. Made out of like melted Coca-Cola cans or some horse shit, but I don't know. All right, I'm going to call it here because it's late, and on that, to call it, I need to know, Greg. What is the musical accompaniment to our departure that our audience will use to salve their feelings of loss as we leave their lives for 6.5 days?
Well, yeah, if I'd known that it was with that particular purpose in mind, I might have chosen otherwise. But now, in fact, we have a request in from AG that I think, the thing is, there's a lot of different angles about the Switch 2 launch that we've already covered, like we did a kind of Mario Kart track that Guillaume selected, to reflect the fact that Mario Kart World is the launch game. I did Zelda Tears of the Kingdom last week to reflect, the Switch 2 editions for, the two Switch games, in that case, and so on and so forth. But, AG had an angle that I think, fits rather well because I guess, a little bit of a throwback in a way. Although it's always been a reasonable fit for launch, periods in a console's life cycle. There's a racing kind of bent to this launch, because we've got Mario Kart World as the big game, but then we've also got F-Zero GX with one of the three GameCube games. We've got Ridge Racer with the Arcade Archives coming up, which kind of takes advantage of the variable refresh rate, I think, in portable play and stuff. And then, of course, there's the new Fast game as well. So Fast Fusion, right? So, AG thought a track from the Fast RMX soundtrack, the game that came out at Switch launch, would be a good idea. It gave a few different suggestions. I've gone with the Avalanche Valley track because, I guess of the three, to me, it was the most propulsive, as you might hope for in a racing game soundtrack. It definitely got some overlap with the kind of electronic sound of the F-Zero GX kind of soundtrack, which was more electronic than the kind of like the guitar driven F-Zero X soundtrack. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit of overlap there, but definitely some of its own feel and just a nice energetic kind of finish. And don't forget, because I did last week while I was speeding through the close of the show, as we've run it a little bit long, that you can send your musical requests to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com.
That's right. And your emails and questions and thoughts and I don't know, whatever. Some of the shit I don't even know how to describe that y'all send us, but whatever. Just send us stuff. Send us things. We're lonely to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com.
James, by the way, your coin is going for about $50 a piece on eBay right now.
What? No.
Yep.
Why?
Yeah. I'm just looking at I'm looking at the completed listings, and they are between $45 and maybe $65 on eBay.
That's dumb.
Yeah, it is.
Don't pay that. Don't pay that.
It does not surprise me in the slightest because it's a limited edition Nintendo item.
Oh my god.
Yep. It's a Zelda scarf,
Oh my God.
basically.
Don't. I'm begging you, don't.
And on that note...
on that, just don't. Just fucking don't. Bye. Bye. I'm mad. Bye, everybody. Respect yourselves better than that.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
It's made out of like melted tin cans, for fuck's sake.